Right, good afternoon everybody. I'm saying good afternoon as if I know when this pod's going out. It's going on at 7 o'clock in the evening, if you're watching it then. I'm actually delighted today, and this is going to sound strange for people that know me and Pete, that he's here. And I think this is really interesting because you've been a local politician for a long time.
I have, yes.
And we've obviously in an area of mutual interest, which is young people and what have you.
Absolutely.
I think historically, people think that me and you don't get on. Okay, it's been said. So I have to say, I really admire two things. One is that you're open and honest. You come to this, and this could go either way. Well, it's going to be a positive experience. But here's the other thing: you've worked in local government for how long?
I've been an elected councillor since 2007.
Well, I mean, to be fair, people who do heinous crimes get less
Some may say that, absolutely.
Well, you know, I've said it to Melody, I've said it to friends of mine that are councillors. My brother was a councillor up at Northumberland. He was a mayor twice. So I know the arena. And obviously we have to go to meetings, and I've done meetings in the Home Office and stuff. So I kind of see what you have to go through. I can only say, A, rather you than me, and B, thank you for doing it on our behalf.
No, not a problem. Delighted to be here.
Well, it's one of them ones, isn't it? So, give us your backstory. Tell the people who don't know you, what's your connection with Chippenham? What's your prehistory?
Yeah, okay, so as Ed has said, I'm Councillor Pete Hutton. I've lived in Chippenham all my life, which is in September this year 55 years. So I think I know a little bit around Chippenham. Born in Chippenham, in Greenways Hospital. Educated in Froggle School and Harley Lewis School.
Yeah.
My aspiration was to be a physical training instructor, but like with everything in life, plans go awry, and I ended up being a salesman and different other bits and pieces. And then, as you heard, I went into politics in around 2007. Yeah. Chippenham's always been a passionate part of my family, and I want to work with people like yourself, Ed, and all the community groups, try and put the politics to one side, and let's try and deliver for Chippenham, and especially the young people. As you said, I'm passionate about the young people.
Yeah.
I've chaired what we call the Local Youth Network, which sits under the area board in Chippenham and is funded by Wiltshire Council. We've worked together on some projects. I've worked with colleagues on numerous projects, and it's a challenge. Yeah. And all conversations we have of late come to the same thing. Most things are constrained by finance, sadly. Yeah. And we have to work together.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think I get it. I know, particularly if you're in a situation in party politics when that you might have one set of known challenges in your own community, but then you have an overriding decree, shall we say, from your party that says this is our methodology. I think most people think, particularly because of the articles, which was no doubt offended loads of Conservatives when I used to write those articles. But here's the thing. I used to criticise Tony Blair, but no one ever picked on it. They never said, he's absolutely murdering Tony Blair. I've called him all sorts of... I don't mean to be disrespectful. No, I'm not that well educated. I'm educated in a different way. Yeah. And my experience and my want and my passion to if it was going to be anything, it's to, having worked in prisons, it's to stop kids going to prison. So I've sometimes become across quite aggressive to people who are going like the Bridge Centre thing. I remember having a meeting with you, Richard Williams, and saying, look, if this is going to go in a mothball, give it to us until there's another time when you decide what you're going to do with it. That didn't happen, so I was like, geez, it's so hard when you're on the front line. It's like the First World War. I'm not saying it's as extreme as this, although I've worked with kiddies that kill people.
And it's quite interesting you say that, Ed. I probably should have said about it. When I was a young person in Chippenham, I was passionate, as I've already said to you, about football, sport, and all the rest of it. Yeah. I had the opposite connection with the Bridge Centre. Yeah. I went there 2 or 3 times when I was 12, 13, and it did absolutely nothing for me unless I played football. Yeah. And I was looking for the bigger picture. Yeah. And I think the discussions we've had over the years, there are certain elements, like with any decision, that we're passionate about the Bridge Centre, and I get that. And when it was pulled down, there was tears and all the rest of it. Yeah. But I think there was also another element, even forgetting me that I'm a councillor, was actually when I went there, when I was 12, 13, whatever, I didn't get it.
Yeah.
And I think it was right for some people, but perhaps not right for everybody.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And I think that's where we are with that.
No, I agree. I don't understand that. Because when I came back to Chippenham after working and being a musician, whatever, in London, I'd never experienced the Bridge Centre. The only thing that we ever did in there, and we did for one time for 6 weeks every single day, is the type of programs that we run, which are nothing like. No disrespect to the olds, because that's exactly what we came across. Oh, we do sport, we do five-a-side. We said, well, what about the girls? What about the other aspects? So we will offer a program that's got so many aspects to it. We just use the building, and rightly so that no one else could say, oh, there's teenagers in there. It's like, this is a perfect environment. So we use the Bridge Centre more than the youth service. If you remember, there used to be the, what was it called upstairs? Well, we worked with it. I don't even know what it's called now. What is it? Like a PRU. It was the pupil referral to YIPS. Yeah. Young people's. Yeah.
There's been so
many things. Yeah. Right. So we worked with them during the day, and then weekends or in the summer holidays, particularly, we'd have that place. So for me, it's like, okay, I do understand what you said. I know what you do, and I've spoken to loads of people because there's a whole thing about the Take Me to the Bridge. There's a whole program of events. There's memories, but there's a memory lane. We've started one with another photographer who's done loads of stuff about and I get you also, because it's a strange place to have a youth centre, isn't it? It's a community centre. It's like, well, you've been surrounded by lead poisoning, surely. But if it's the only thing, because here's the bit, we're now in a pandemic. We've had to apply to Wiltshire Foundation. Thankfully, they're receptive to hire the Rotary Hall. Because we need extra space for social distancing to work with young people who are say vulnerable, and that the world these people can't be left at home, and these bits, like, we know if you've seen, I won't say it publicly, but what we've been through recently, not me, you, I'm on about us with social services, bless them all, hard working, all trying to, there's all sorts of issues that are coming, and this is the bit, the tsunami of mental health that's going to hit us now. All bets are off. This is what I've been banging on about, the distributor road, about the houses. Like, oh no, guys, I work up and down the country that we couldn't look after these people before these ideas. I don't care who's in government up there. In our locality, we haven't been able to legislate for the young people. Now, that from people, if you don't ever come across young people, well, because me and you meet in the park, and how many projects have we done with Will to say, Will stop me and say, hey, this is happening. We'll go, okay, let's do blah, blah, blah. He'll get in contact with you. We did the Cuckoo film, massive impact. There's a whole new tranche of young people who suddenly have got a different respect for that park, and more importantly, the people that work there and the people that utilise it. So for me, it's like, right, it's got to be a win-win. You don't want a situation where you've got a lot, and this happened loads of times, lots of big groups of young people who feel not a part of society in any way, and are getting told to keep the language down, this, down, that. Well, there's one way of doing it, and there's another way of doing it.
And I think it's the positive side of it, and I get it. And I've experienced problems with my division and the town where you get, as you described, antisocial behaviour. And there was always a classic perception, rightly or wrongly, where you see a group of young children in a park or an open space. They're not all bad children. There are a small element that do want just to cause trouble. But if there are a group of teenagers in a park under a tree and they're not causing any trouble, then they're quite entitled to be there. But I think it's all about, we need to get the message over, it's all about working together, and we have to bring the community along with us. We're thankful that we've got groups like your organisation that work with our youth. Would the Lynn like more funding? Absolutely, but that's like every other branch of every other council, and indeed the council itself would like more money. I think the challenge for us is this is the benefit I see of the Lynn. We haven't got a building, and ironically we're in this building, that's costing us probably, I don't know, I suspect the Bridge Centre would cost around 100 grand a year to keep and maintain. We can take that 100 grand a year and dish it out to groups like yours or individuals to say, look, there's some funding, you get on and deliver the service we want, or the photography competition that we've done, or the arts projects, or whatever it is. And I do see that being a positive, but I will say it would be great to have more money, obviously.
Yeah.
I think the challenge is the building. I for one, I'm not a die in a ditch person on a building, but I understand we need buildings, but we also can't be in a position where either a council or Can Do or the church, that they're the sole person who pays the bill, because everybody's struggling. We need, if we had a building with 6 partners, everybody divvying up.
Oh, no,
I could see
absolutely. But here's my thoughts on that. So prevention is better than cure. And this is, I know that there was not a part of the legislation to legislate for young people. There is no remit in law for Wiltshire Council to have a youth service, which is all well and good. Whoever came up with that needs to really reconsider, because the false economy of not legislating for quite physically able and sometimes emotionally imbalanced young human beings is the detriment to every single person in the community. So if you're a politician and you're looking at budgets, and I know that this has happened many times, and they say, they don't say this, but maybe they do, what can we get away with getting rid of, right? And of course they look around and they say, well, you can't do anything with the senior citizens because they're well motivated, they pay their taxes and they're really quite vocal. Mothers and toddlers, well, you know, what goes on and goes on, young people. Now, if you then looked at the price that we have to pay to put one of them through court, I would be able to pay you every year £100,000 in the money I'd save the society. So it's a false economy. Now, it's hard when you're dealing with people that are under the auspices of a party political thing. Right? Now, I get it. Of course I get why people are members of parties, because you have a certain set of principles. I don't relate very well. Now, I have to say, I'm always surprised when working class people from the are members of the Conservative Party. I just am. It's like, do you not get that that's an elitist party for the wealthy? I'm not really interested. It's not your fault who the party leader is, but they change. You can't simultaneously be fundamentally as a human being. You can't like everyone. You can't certainly support someone. You can't. Okay, what's the difference between Theresa May and Boris Johnson? You don't say hair or shoes.
I think I get what you're saying. I think I and there are lots of other. I know you'd be funny if we just bumped into Councillor Ross Henning, who's a dear colleague of mine, and we stand under different political tickets, but we are united in our passion for youth. I think where people like him and I are different to perhaps others, when we talk about youth, you would not know that I'm a Tory, all right?
Oh no, I
because
agree.
And I think
what
I'm saying is I think I can understand what you're saying, and perhaps 10, 15 years ago that would be the case. I think with part of my council roles, I've got 2 or 3 that connect with the youth. One is safeguarding, and you're absolutely right. Prevention is the best thing. I work with the police. Prevention is the best thing. I work with I'm on the fire service for Dorset and Wiltshire. They spend more time preventing fires because, quite rightly, if a fire engine has to go and men have to put fires out, that cost is a cost. Yeah. If a man goes to a school and can prevent young children starting cars, starting car fires. We're not only saving money, but we're saving
all sorts, isn't it?
And it's a challenge, absolutely.
Of course. So from my perspective, it's like, right, okay, I'll give you an example. We get called across to go to Calm, right, the town council, and it was still just when there was remnants of the youth service. What was it? About 4 of them. There were 4 advisors. Richard Williams was one of them. Someone over there. No.
He was there was all these acronyms. He was a local.
Yes. See, I can't even spell my own name. I don't do acronyms from someone else. But so I'm in this meeting, and they're talking about all these antisocial behavioural problems, right? And you can imagine me. As I say, I'm not very well educated, and lots of the stuff I do is kind of. I've probably got to be on the register somewhere, and I'm not about any of the registers but autism. The idea of, I always call it the boy in the Emperor's New Clothes scenario, where I'd hear stuff and I'd go, well, are you, the guy's naked, are you mad? You know what I mean? It's that sort of thing. It's like so obvious because of my experience. having worked in prisons, worked around the country, worked in Brixton, but you name it, Salford, all so say hard areas, yeah. And I mean, what I think is a fundamentally fantastic area. So I come back to Chippenham.
Yeah.
Not anywhere in Wiltshire. I mean, or anywhere. I lived up and down the country. Came to Chippenham for all sorts of fantastic reasons which remain to this day. That's the people, that's the crack you can have, there's a great sense of community, so it's perfect. However, Lincoln go around and go, right, well, we can do this and this, whatever it was, you know, usual thing. And everyone that's brilliant, so, but where are we going to do it? Where can we do it? I didn't know that we couldn't do it in the old youth service, the old perfectly appointed youth building. And so what about whatever it's called there, you know, beautiful. We've done projects there before, and I said, it's amazing. Do you ever go in the one in Calne?
Is that the Heritage Centre?
I don't know, the one by the wreck, you know, it was right by the field. Perfectly placed, as opposed to our one, which was a beautiful old building, which you could get away with doing loads of stuff, but was in the centre of a roundabout. Whereas the one in Calne was fantastic, and it'll come to me probably during sleep, what it was called. So I'm saying, so we'll do that there. Them there said to me, Ed, we've got instructions from the county council that building can be used for anything but with young people. And in fact, they've been in there and they basically destroyed it, they vandalised it. And I was going, I think I might have done this. You are kidding me. And they weren't. We never did that project because there was nowhere place to do it. Now, this is what I'm talking about. It's like, right, if a group of young people had broken into that building and done exactly what the council had done, I'm not saying it was you, I'm not the council workers, they'd be arrested because it's antisocial, it's vandalism. Now, I would love to know, really I would love to know, you can go away, you can come back and say, oh, it was such and such, not because I want to berate them, but I want them to understand that those decisions are really retrograde decisions, just like, whatever you do, what I'm saying is, my advice is, whatever you do, if you think that, not legislating for youth in the first place, and it's not you, I know that this has gone on for years. When I first came back here, you were not a councillor, so it's definitely not putting this on you. But it's such a false economy that if you were just talking, as a Tory or anyone else, about saving money, the last thing you do, literally the last thing you do would be to destroy areas that the people, and this is the interesting, so then we have to use the Olympiad. We're using the Olympiad, right? Which now is a great building for all sorts of stuff, right? Without a doubt. We put on plays there, we put on all sorts of shows. But on a weekly basis, to take the young people that we work with, as opposed to going around to a youth centre, dealing with some of their issues in a way that people are glad that no one else can hear what their issues are, because trust me, they're quite loud. And then we're having to go, and we're doing some of the stuff, the sports stuff we're doing, with only a curtain between a mothers and toddlers group. And like, it's really hard for a young person in that situation, because they're involved in one of the games, to remember that there's little kids over this thing. And I'm thinking, this is so difficult. When we were in the youth centre, not that they were allowed to get away with swearing and shouting, by the way, just because no one else could hear them, but at least I know that, you know, as a parent myself, it'd be like, if I heard, and I did because I was the other side, but if we've used the other side since. It's like, oh no, the clash of needs here, which is someone's going to come out a loser. It's going to be little kids, the parents, or the teenagers. You can't use it.
Well, what I can provide reassurance is the last 12 months, obviously in lockdown, we're having not the same amount of meetings, but still a number of meetings virtually. There's two things that have come out of COVID. One, we are still waiting, and we haven't hit the limit, thank God, yet. Mental issues with young people being confined, etc., is an important issue, and it is a problem that we need to address. But one of the things that I think I can say to you, certainly in the last meetings I've had in the last 6 months, and this goes on all council business, that what we want to do and strive for is the youth, the young people, are the centre of the business. So irrespective of, it's just, obviously they're connected with children's services, but it could be development, let's say. We ask parish councils their view on X development, wherever it is, or the Sound Council. But we should be also asking the young people, especially, as you quite rightly say, if it's something that they're going to want or potentially have coming out of a development, you need to know what they want. So we are focusing and making sure that the youth, and we've created something called Youth Voice, that the young people are actually asked, what do you think about this, or do you want to play a part in it?
Brilliant. Who's running it?
Well, it's part of the council. It's all, the youth thing is going to all departments.
Yeah.
The Youth Voice obviously sits under safeguarding and all that type of thing. But it's making sure we do connect with the youth.
Yeah.
Because the youth of today are the adult social care of tomorrow.
Thank you for saying that, because I sometimes, we used to get various local governments and national governments, to be fair, but would get us to do consultation, and one of the things we did was the South Wilts Plan. So I don't know, with the fantastic Maria Scordialis, who used to work for the county council. So we're doing these creative consultations, because you bless you, you must have been in a million of them. We did a consultation which is quite creative, and it's about future thinking, right? But we have literally, in each of these places, I think we probably did 6, we'd have a cross-section of young people right way through to really senior citizens. And in the space of a day, often you'd hear these two things, no matter where it was. We'd tell them what the other people said at the last consultation. They'd say, oh yeah, we need more police. There's all these youths hanging around on the street corners, right? But bizarrely, through the whole process of doing it, they would end up saying, what we need is more places and for young people to go and more things for them to do without fail. So it's like, then the idea of hubs, bizarrely, that's when literally out of that consultation all those years ago, this idea of social hubs came out. This one is one, but it wasn't me telling them all you should have is a multi-use place. But you also know that there's got to be horses for courses. In other words, if you really want to allow young people to develop, and you're doing brilliant if you're saying that they're going to have a voice, they can, and I agree with you completely. I want to try and do the same with the Rotary Club, get young people involved in that. The Greens Club, the bowling club by our house, by our place. It's a beautiful thing now. They won't have anyone playing on it in 10 years' time if we don't get young people involved. And it's literally the grassroots. So it's either bowling, I don't care what it is, because here's the other thing. The other thing that we're trying to stop is the kiddies climbing on the roofs of the bowling right now. So one young person sees me coming across the park and she goes, oh Ed, you're going to tell them off? I said, no, I'm going to make a film with them. And she goes, you are, ain't you? Now, we're still doing that, to be fair. We think we put in a bid in to do it with you for April, whenever it's coming out. The idea is they're climbing on a roof in our beautiful park, by the way, in everyone's beautiful park. So it's not as if they haven't got a beautiful park, so let's remember that. They're climbing on the roof of the bowling green because that seems exciting, except they don't know that in that thing, and I checked it out, is quite a dangerous whatever. They fall through that, they're actually in big trouble, which is what the film's about. Go and talk to the guys, and bless Will, he organises the meeting. And I know Jerry, and he says, well, that roof, he says, that roof there of the club, he said, it's strong as ever. He said, it's not that roof I'm talking about, Jerry, it's that roof. He went, oh my God. He said, if they go through that, they'd be dead. I said, yes! That's what I'm talking about. So it's identifying the behavioural stuff. How do you? There's no point. I've been in the police station the last 3 weeks with the young people that we work with. There's no point. By that stage, they've done something. They've already done something. If they've fallen through the roof and they've crippled themselves, somewhere along the line, there's going to be all sorts of recriminations. Now, I am interested, of course, in recriminations. I'm interested in prevention. I don't want the kid to go through the roof. I don't want the bowls club to have a broken roof, but I certainly don't want a kid to be crippled for life and to regret it. So you have to do something that allows the young people to buy into, realistically and honestly, whatever the process is, instead of saying, well, we want you to think this or do this. It don't work.
I think the biggest challenge, you mentioned bowls, and we are we're very fortunate, lucky, whatever you want to call it, within Chippenham. We've got a number of Olympians. Now, I expect if I walked down the high street today or any day and said to people in Chippenham, again, who lived there all their life, that we've got Olympians, they probably wouldn't have a clue, but we've got a young canoeist, and I know we've got archers and all the rest of it. Our biggest problem, and I suspect it's the same for Can-Do and all the groups, however well we try to promote ourselves, we always come across the classic, and I get it, not on a daily basis, but on a regular basis. There's nothing to do in Chippenham. Well, we both know there is a lot to do. We try to get that message out on text, Facebook, Snapchat, whatever the current platform is. But there will always be this challenge of those people you've described, actually, how do we connect with them? Because they're not, even if we had something really, really good, they probably would just still want to do, as you say, either antisocial behaviour or just walk around in a group. And it's how we get that message across.
So it's also okay for young people to walk around in groups. What I would like to make sure when they're doing it is that they respect everyone else's. And that might be whatever age that woman or young man is walking through that park, because this is literally the thing that happened. That's why I'm saying it. Yeah. Will know exactly what I'm talking about, because he's talked to me about it, and I've talked to the young people about it. The police hopefully haven't had to be more involved, because this is what I'm talking about. That sort of communication, which I'm going to congratulate you again, you've always ensured happened, because it makes sense. If I happen to be a person that works, or we are happen to be works with community and specialise particularly in the hardest to reach, who are you going to call? It ain't going to be the Ghostbusters. It's going to be, Ed's walked through. Hey, Ed, can you listen? Every year that happens, and then we find out who it is, and we don't go, right, we're going to be in trouble. We go the opposite way and go, right, what can we do? And we have got so many offers on board. It's life skills, it's food, it's self-awareness, it's all those things, martial arts, whatever it is, that's going to allow a young person to say, hey, you're listening to what my needs are, instead of the one size fit all.
And I think we always come back to this thing about funding, but you mentioned it earlier, there's a number of examples you can give. I use the fire as an example, but if you can prevent something, it saves you money. That's a fact. We know that. Yeah. The irony of all this is we've all got constrained budgets, but if we can prevent, even if it's a young person going into either care or, God forbid, into prison, that cost, you don't go to prison and it costs nothing. Let's invest in that young person before we get to that stage, even if it's a matter of trying to support them through university, college or an apprenticeship. Getting them out of that is actually cheaper and beneficial to everybody. And it's recognising that, because otherwise they go into something and it costs the state, us, the taxpayers, far more just than money. We've lost that young person.
There you go.
And it's that, get that.
No, absolutely. So on all levels, what a win-win situation. So it's about reprioritising our budgets. I don't believe in the economy, by the way. I don't believe in the stock market. I don't believe in capitalism, partly because it's a myth, it's an illusion. You know, if you seriously think about it, your house that you're selling now, when you bought it, would have been one price. If you bought it when it's low, it would be, hopefully, you're going to make more money on it. But the point is that your house would eventually have to cost £1 billion if capitalism is real. It'd have to keep doing that, wouldn't it? It never does. The other thing that people don't understand is that without the pandemic, the stock market was going to pan. I keep a good eye on this. Pre-December, we were going to have another 2008 scenario. Nothing to do with the pandemic. I think in a way, I should imagine the capitalist system is saying, wow, thank goodness for the pandemic, because you've seen all sorts of opportunists all of a sudden started making PPE when they'd never even heard of the word before. Right. That's just human nature. I don't put that down to any political party, because you and I could go through history and go, well, okay then, one for one. Who did that? They did. Where are they from? They're not doing it because they're conservatives or Labour or anything else. Those people with those perspectives. I'll say it again, Blair, hiding under the guise of, they'll probably go this way. I don't think Boris thought that there was going to be a Brexit vote. I think he's an opportunist. In fact, I probably know he is. And again, it's really hard not to be disrespectful of him, but I just think he's the nature of his upbringing, the nature of his elitism, and certain stories I've heard about him at college would say, nah, you're not a person that is looking at the best interest of the masses. I think I'm obviously part of the masses. I think you probably are as well. You come from Chippenham. We come from a nice area. But it's real. You're a real person, and if you don't come from an estate, and I mean a private estate or a slave-funded estate like what's his name, Cameron. Anyway, the point is priorities, and I think moving forward, health and safety, obviously, community safety, as you said, prevention, absolutely. The prevention of negative spend. So when we worked in schools, it's like they get vandalism, they get this. How do you stop the school having to spend money on expelling kids or breaking windows? Well, spend the money now, because you don't want to keep having to replace the windows.
Absolutely.
Or, right. So anywhere moving forward, I think did we send information to you about the Unlock Reset Festival?
Is this the one you're hoping to have in Monkton Park?
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
Monkton Park, John Coles Park, something for everyone. It's a school day, so we want to do educational stuff, not just us, I mean everyone, to re-engage with our open spaces. And again, of course, if it's lockdown, we'll do it virtually. We've done one virtual film festival since the pandemic. We've produced 2 short films in America during the pandemic, whilst all the time working with really vulnerable families, right, and young people. So there's no reason why, if it is unlocked, the point about the reset element is, how does everyone come together? You're saying it already, mate. I've got to say, I'm impressed. It's like, well, we're setting up this voice. It's like, yeah, that's exactly what's needed. Brilliant. Maybe we should talk more. It's because we've got a raft of experience. You're probably better off speaking to Donna because she's articulate. But the idea is, no, we work in such ridiculous circumstances. It's like we work in Salford and Brixton with gangs or whatever we're working with in really quite dangerous situations, and yet when we come home, we might be up there we did one in Salford for 3 years, and when we come home, the comparative problems, of course, if you're living in an estate and you think you have an antisocial, it's no good me coming around and telling you, and this is true, I've just come from an estate in Salford where the guy that we were previously working with as a volunteer is in prison because he got asked by a gang to send this guy that is coming to his house. Another guy comes out and shoots him dead in his front room. That's the reality we're dealing with. And going, right, so he's not on the team anymore then. No. We laughed, right? That's the nature of some people's lives. We're working with Green Square. Back in the day, quite recently as well, doing award-winning, nationally award-winning stuff, or locally award-winning, regionally award-winning stuff with Green Square, when they had the disposable income to invest in all sorts of the whatever project we did, which was fantastic, about NEETs, preparing them from work, life skills and mental health, all this sort of good stuff. Brilliant. Green Square, fantastic. So we're looking at how do we do this project up at Hill Rise. And do you know, when we did a long-term project that's fantastic, really worked well with all other groups. I said, any chance that we could take a coach for some of the parents or some of the people that were complaining about young people and the young people to this project we're working with in Salford. I go, well, what do they do there? And we told them. They had all sorts of prevention schemes run by the people, for the people, without it sounding like a communist thing, because there was little or nothing on this estate. We were employed by the university, which was quite forward-thinking of Salford University. Why do you want to take them there? I said, because when they go up there, not only when they learn about all these brilliant initiatives, but when they see the context of what these people are living and how they're operating, when they come back to Hill Rise, they get off the coach, they will kiss the ground. And bless Green Square, they said, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
And I think we didn't, because there was no money in the end, because everything changed. But
you use a good analogy again, though. Often we get complaints, comments, whatever you like to call them, and I literally say what you have just said. I'm not saying for 1 minute Chippenham is perfect. It's got issues underlying and ongoing. But if you go to somewhere else and come back, you then appreciate what you've got. Now, is everything rosy? No, it's not. Can we do better? Yes, we can. But actually, we're in a far better place than, as you say, some of the inner cities, wherever they are challenging, and they have different challenges. But our challenges are still the same. I think the biggest challenge is the perception of the young people.
Yeah.
And I go back to what I said about children under the tree. For 9 times out of 10, that will be absolutely fine. The one time when they're causing trouble, that's when the residents focus on that, quite rightly.
Yeah.
And what we have to do is say, right, actually, kids, look, you're using this park or wherever it is, there are people around here that you need to treat with respect.
Yeah. That ain't going to happen in that conversation, though, is it? You're not going to stop and have the conversation. I do have that conversation, and obviously I'm used to it, so I don't expect everyone to do it. I don't expect...
I have had the conversation.
No, I mean, I mean, your regular person in our community will want to go through, utilise that park, and there will come a certain point where it's like, oh, my needs are being overlapped by those needs, or whatever, and there's conflict, and I've seen it, you know this, and will they, and also their staff get over periods of time they can get all sorts of abuse because they are the front line in that context. They're saying, actually, guys, do you mind not swearing, or da-da-da, or worse. But I think never before in a time in history, without a doubt, have we now got to say, okay, well, that was how it was before, and there still wasn't enough places to work these projects through. The whole thing with the Olympiad. Now, I don't know who owns it, what owns it. We've said about the riverbank thing. Now, for me, they were doing. See, again, we're going to go on about the Bridge Centre, and I keep going on about the Bridge Centre because it just made so much sense. It's like, well, no one's going to complain about them here. We can do what we want. They can, and we can definitely do the very thing that you're talking about, the socialisation that needs to happen, so they can kind of appreciate. But at least they know, oh, okay, well, we've got a place where we can go. Now that they haven't, not really. There's not really. If you join the Scouts, yeah. If you join the Cadets, yeah. But you have to do that. It's like even if you do some of the stuff with Rise, they're religious. You have to be kind of. Don't they have a little angel sort of thing? It's like.
I don't know. I work very closely with Deb as I do with you, as I say.
Yeah.
Ironically, you mentioned about angels. Actually, one of the sectors I have seen come in my lifetime as a councillor, where they were clearly over there and local authority was here, it are the churches. We have some wonderful churches in the town. I know 2 or 3 very, very intimately. They do food banks, they do, when they can, toddlers group and all that.
Biggest landowners in the country.
They are.
Some of the richest organisations. And listen, I have absolutely no problem with people being under whatever delusion around their religion and their thing. That's up to them. That's fine. When the country's taxes or when the resources are utilised or separated, because here's the next thing I'm going to say to you: the churches. Does it involve the Muslim church? The what are they called? The mosques. Does it involve the mosques? Because we've got loads of influx, and thankfully, by the way, of refugees. This is what this project's about. By the way, we have a different background for each interview, but you and Ross, we all sat and go, we'll have that. And it's not a personal thing. It's to do with the fact that we're trying to show everyone's art, all the art, they're all local artists. So each week we try and show a different one. You'll see it as it goes out. We say churches, it's like, the reset. That ain't the churches. Good luck to them. Where's the Muslims? Where's the Jews? Where's all the other people that are represented? So in a way, we can't, as an old white English, whatever, I'm not any of this, I am obviously white-ish, but the point is I'm Irish. When you see that, it's the old world, isn't it? The churches and the council, it's like, bless those people. They can be part of any organisation if they're coming together to contribute to a more positive outcome for the society. But we have to be completely inclusive. So you may as well do away with some of those titles, because unless we're going to say the churches, the mosques, the synagogues, the Moonies, the Scientologists, go on, because it's like they're all much of a muchness, aren't they? Some are older, some are new. I used to be indoctrinated by the Irish Catholic Church, but look at me now, Doctor, I'm fine.
Well, I think the churches, again, we talked about it earlier, I think they face the same problems. Again, I refer back to what I said about buildings. They realised they got a huge building in some cases, costing a lot of money, but more important, forget the money situation. Basically, they were relying on funerals, births, and the Sunday sermon, basically. I'm generalising a little bit.
And centuries of exploitation and wealth and development, gold stolen. And
the similarities to politics in council is they wanted to change, and a lot of it is to do with personalities. There are a number of reverends that I know very personally that I can call them by their first name. I wouldn't have dreamt of doing that 20 years ago, but they get it and they will ring me up and say, can we do this? We have this. We have the conversation. I don't want to be disrespectful to all churches.
No, but I think it's. I don't want to be. I'm just. Of course, it is. But the reality is, there's no system in the world that would get away with that amount of complaints about its procedures and still operate and go, wait a minute, something's going on here. Even very recently about the Church of England, it's like, come on, people. Well, I think be good without being. You don't have to be good. You don't have to be a conservative to you know what I mean, or a Labour person to be caring about your community. Likewise, you don't have to be religious. I respect anyone's views, but when they actually are used to exclude in lots of ways. And I'm not talking about the people you're talking about. Of course, there are local, whatever. Their job's a vicar, good luck to them. Their job could be anything. I don't care what the job is how do they come together to best help and contribute to the sustainable way we're going to move forward.
Yeah, and I think I go back to what I said when I did my slight introduction at the beginning. I hope, and the feedback I get is that when I go to a meeting or meet a kid in a park, they wouldn't necessarily know I'm a conservative.
No.
But I also think most of the vicars now don't come over as the vicar. Their first sort of selling feature is, I am Andrew or Peter or Keith or Simon.
Yeah.
If you want to come to the church, that's great. But actually, would you like to help with the food?
Yeah.
Would you like to? And it's a bit like the conservative thing. I get what you're saying. I get it on a lot of comments to me. Oh, you're a toff, blah blah. People have got this thing in their head what a conservative is, Church of England leader, a youth leader should be, but actually they don't know because it's changed. Thankfully, it's changed.
Well, so I say, why bother having that label?
Well,
for me, I'll run these by you and see what you think. Yeah. I don't think anyone should be an MP for any constituency unless they've lived in the constituency minimum 5 years. Also, they should have to have done either parish or town or county council. Now, you know better than most, right, what that takes is a commitment, right? How much you would have to know. So, put it this way, if the choice was you, and I know that you know Chippenham inside out, and if you're going to represent the area, I just go, well, I don't care what his politics is, I know the guy's lived here all his life, or his wife has, they know the place, they know what's going on. When you get someone shipped in, because this is about the party politics, you get shipped in from wherever, and I'm not even talking about Michelle, I'm not talking about, what's his name, Duncan before, James Gray, bless them. They're coming into this game. This is how the game's played. I don't think. What do you think about that?
My personal view is, and I think we are getting there, and I don't say this as a conservative, I say this as politics general. I sort of 99% agree with you. I think the local attachment, and it's almost irrespective of what the parties think, it's the voters.
Yeah.
My personal feeling is, and it's what I get as being a councillor, is you have to have some recognition of the area you are in. Yeah. Now, if you can say to someone, I went to school, or actually, my dad lives there, he experienced that business closing, I think you have a connection. I understand what went on in the past and people were perhaps parachuted in, but for me personally, it's that connection. I personally, if I wanted to be an MP, I wouldn't want to be an MP of Scarborough or Bristol, and that's no disrespect to those places. Yeah. I wouldn't have a clue what is going on in Scarborough, and I wouldn't have a clue what's going on in Bristol. Yeah. I have a clue what's going on in Chippenham.
And you don't have to play catch up, do you?
No.
Because you've lived here.
Yeah.
Now, and literally, no disrespect to them, so here's the next bit. Parliament Museum. Take it to Coventry. Right? A new building, a round building, which has built into it the offices of each politician, each MP, accommodation for each MP, 2 rooms so that whoever can visit them, but the accommodation and their offices, and a round circular place with public galleries where people, forget about your politicians, come together, town councils, local council, whatever it is, come together and discuss equitably how we as a society, because Scotland's going to go, Ireland's going to be reunited, and Wales will probably join Ireland because they love them. So England, and Kerno will go as well. So basically you're talking about Wiltshire, Kent, you're talking about the idea of having a centralised building, a new functional, fit-for-purpose building, that instead of having all that, remember that, the expenses scandal, they were tipped in this house, that house, it's like, look, not being disrespectful again, let's get everyone, of course they're there for however long they're there at Parliament, they have to sleep, they have to eat, so let's have cafeterias in this place, in this multiplex. What do you think about that idea?
I think, I don't disagree, I think what we will see out of the pandemic and what we are seeing now, and it's not just councils and it's not just Parliament, it's business. This idea, and for us at Wiltshire Council it was going to Trowbridge, as a fire service it was going to Salisbury, as MPs it was going to London. That model now, if we stand back and reflect over the last 12 months, in terms of Parliament, in your question, 600 people coming from around the country to a
Yeah.
building.
Yeah.
Actually, no, let's stand back and think about it. Of course, there's going to be disease transferred.
Yeah.
And not only that, if we are all talking about climate and environment, which we are, and we've all got different views, how can it be right that 600 people
12.
come from around,
Yeah.
apart from the London
Yeah.
people, obviously,
Yeah.
they have to get on some form of transport to get to this building. Now, I am not advocating, I am a physical person like today, I'd like to come and meet you.
Yeah, fair
However,
play to you.
part of my diary now will be virtual meetings because it's easier. And I think,
Killing, isn't it?
yeah, I think the issue is Parliament, and I think they were going to test it with the redevelopment of the Houses of Parliament to do what you said. My understanding was they were going to take Parliament to Birmingham. They were going to take it around. Whether that is ever going to happen, I don't know.
Well, you know why I said Coventry? It sounds like I want to say
Yeah.
the politicians.
They were going to
Coventry.
take
It's
it
the central. It's the most central city in England.
Yeah.
I think either the British Isles. I think Donna, you can tell us because you know that sort of stuff. But Coventry, just so that it felt more reputable. Because this is the other thing. I've lived in North London, I've lived up north, I've worked in all these places. The idea of there's a divide, there is a divide. There is this idea that in these elites down in London are making decisions which affect all of it, everyone, but they have no real idea. And if you're parachuting your MP in, who has no idea. Listen, Ed Miliband was it probably still is, God bless him, good luck to him, was the MP for Doncaster. Now I know Doncaster, I actually am very affectionate, very fond of Doncaster. Do I think that Ed Miliband represents Doncaster first, or does he represent the Labour Party first? I'm afraid, I think he doesn't know and live in Doncaster, and if he did, he'd have a right old crack. It's a good place. But the point is, they would have a perspective that would not necessarily suit with a Labour Party's overriding ideology. And it's like, well, that ain't going to work then. You need somebody who lives and breathes, regardless of the, and also here's the other thing about professional MPs. They just go through one thing, they've never really had a proper job, they've never been in the real world. The next thing, they're making decisions on areas they have no clue. So
I think we're getting there. I think it's a long journey.
Yeah.
I think it's like anything. We have to, if we talk about Parliament and people voting and all the rest of it, we have to get the connection better, because otherwise you then see a low turnout, and we may see a low turnout this year because of COVID, but then you have to stand back and say, actually, what is that democratic if only 25% of the population or you're getting, you want to have democracy, you need to promote it, and I think you need to get out there and take the criticism but also take the plaudits, and that comes with the nature.
No, I agree, and I think it's so when we do this festival 21st, let's have a what are you going to call it then, I think there should be a way that people can celebrate everything about our society, our community, all the NHS, all the shop workers, all the people that got through paramedic. There'll be a list, right? You guys have had to work regardless. You've had to do all your meetings, and bless you, I've tried to do a couple on Zoom, and you know what I mean.
They are
my own eyes, and then So fair play for doing that. But having a ceremony, or listen to me, a festival, however it transpires, where if it has to be virtual, it will be, but if it can be in our beautiful parks, it would be great if we have people like yourself who are there to meet and greet people, to say, boom, right, okay, so we're on to the next stage. I want to meet outside of this environment to talk about some other issues, nothing, whatever, that pertain to youth specifically, in order that we can put together all our resources.
Yeah, and I think sadly I think it's probably after that, but a similar sort of concept then. So local youth network, you use the example of Monkston Park. We have funded over probably the last 6 years rope courses and outward bound courses and rock climbing in Monkston Park. Yeah, they've been very successful. They are now almost self-funding, and there's actually a waiting list. We have booked, and I think it's one of the bank holidays, but they all alter these days. What we are going to do, and there will be an invite coming to you, if we can get that on in Monkston Park, and I think it's probably after your
Well, it's not ours. It's our thing. Why don't we combine it?
What we want to do is not just have the rock climbing event on that weekend. We want other partners to trade round our rock club. Right, this is Can-Do Arts. Oh, I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
This is the canoe club. This is the skate club. So people can actually, because I think there will be a hunger to do things, but we got to move it on.
Right, let's check this out then. So we announced that the other day. I could put on that thing tomorrow with all the seriously with all localized performers, groups. Say we collectively can, and Melt Productions, really professional. I think you guys are going to use them anyways for other things, so it makes sense. All locally based infrastructure for this Unlock Reset festival, working with the schools and the communities. We should talk about it again. Obviously, you have to evolve. It'll evolve. I think it needs to meet everyone's needs, and it's not. I'm not. We've got ideas because we put on loads of events.
Yeah.
But there'll be bits and pieces that people can take over and do, like you said.
I think it's ironic that we both, and I mentioned colleague Ross Henning, and you've interviewed. I think we've both mentioned about we're not political and fine, but we always end up talking about it because I say that because. Absolutely, I'd love to be there in June or July, whenever it is, but of course we've got this stupid thing called an election in May. I may not be in post. So, but in saying that, I've always said to people, irrespective of May, and if I'm still here and all the rest of it, I will still be playing a part in youth. And I think that's...
It's exactly that. Yeah. If you're the guy that's going to be doing whatever because you're up for doing it, I don't care what your job is, I don't care what your politics, I worry about your football team, you do sport.
Not anybody at the moment.
Fair play. At the moment, it doesn't work like that. Right, the next thing, or just very briefly, distributor roads and all that sort of stuff. What was your thoughts on it?
It's ongoing, it's out for consultation. There's another meeting next week about it. Not to get into the finite, but again, I suppose going back onto the youth, I go back to when I was getting married 30 odd years ago.
Wow.
I think you're going to interview my wife later. I had a choice. I wanted to buy a house. There was no houses in Chippenham I could afford. The only place I could afford to get one was Cowan or Melksham. And I'm not decrying either of those towns, they're wonderful towns. I didn't want to live in there. Thankfully, Pewsham Estate application erupted. We put our names down and we had a new house coming out the ground.
Yeah.
Now the issue with the distributor road is, and it's linked to housing whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
I'm coming from the young people.
Yeah.
We need affordable housing, whether it's there or there.
Yeah.
But what we need is a cohesive plan.
Yeah.
Right. We need a plan that will deliver infrastructure, halls, things to do.
Yeah.
Now, whether it's there or not, that's not within my gift.
Yeah.
But what I want for Chippenham is a plan of things to do, because the area I represent, Seacombe Park South, it was promised a youth hall, but the money now it went on other things.
So that's my point. Here's my point. I tell you what. Well, when we get an equivalent of the bridge centre rebuilt, when we've got the infrastructure to facilitate and to legislate for the youth that we have already, which we've fundamentally failed, I think. Not we personally. I mean, we as a society. If you don't value them and you knock down their buildings, trust, they come back with the. And it's interesting because the type of kids that we work with, by the way, aren't the kids that are allowed in the bridge centre. We have to take them with the youth service. I mean, we have to take them at different times, and that's why we end up using it so much, because it's exactly what society wants us to do. Is there anything you can do with these people? Yeah, we can, but we need someone to do it. So I'm saying, forget just when we started Can-Do 23 years ago. It's Can-Do Arts for Sustainable Development. It was told by some really big thinkers because they knew what I was trying to achieve, what we using the arts. There was 30 years. That was it. 30 years before we'd hit a tipping point, and there would be no coming back environmentally. So we worked, and you probably don't know this, but I've worked in major industry, petrochemical companies, paper mills, doing all sorts of workshops to get them to look at how they impact the local society, the climate, etc., the social, the environmental, the financial, what do you call it? There's fingers. What are these things? You know, how they all get the Venn diagram of sustainable development. You can't do it without working with people on an emotional and a spiritual, if you like, physical level. So building new houses or building distributor roads at this now, or I get it, what people thought that's how the world worked, it can't possibly happen. That's £75 million I would like you to get for this area anyway, but not spend it on any of those.
Yeah, again, I'm not going to go into detail about it, but I think the main thing of any development, wherever it is, it has to be a benefit to the community.
Yeah.
It's not just about providing houses. We've seen that, and I've referenced Seapan Parkside. Yes, it's a wonderful area, as other areas, and yes, it had Sainsbury's supermarket. But what else did it have?
That's what I'm saying.
It had nothing.
So I don't trust anyone. More importantly, I know too much about biodiversity and the massive effects, the climate change and everything else, for me, as I said, having that experience to sort of look at the councillors and say, I'm not being rude, but what do you actually know about this? Not many of them do. They have not spent 23 years in the sustainable development thing. So if they were get some good advices.
The problem with planning is, and we've seen it, whether it's a little extension next door or it's 100 houses, 1,000. Everybody has a view or what they think that a little knowledge of planning, and they always say a little knowledge is dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we've all seen interpretations of, well, why can't the councillors do this, or why can't the council do that? Why did the government do this? It's very difficult. But going back to again what we said earlier, what we need to try and do is get that conversation happening earlier. Because once government has given the council right, we need Wiltshire to provide X amount of houses.
I think it's the wrong way around. Why does the government think they can tell us that?
And that's the conversation.
I say, listen, I'll put you right down there. Remember this day I said it. There's absolutely no way. I don't think, this is true, I don't think Boris Johnson, bless him, and his mates are going to be in power very much longer. In fact, if in truth, if you look at the appalling way they've handled this bizarre pandemic, and I'm just going to say two words: Champions League match and Cheltenham racehorses. Yeah. Anyone in their right minds that thought that when you have a pandemic that involves people getting in close contact, that doesn't shut the airports and the ports, have got something, their perspective on life and on the validity of life and the sanctity of life, they've got it wrong. Anyway, I want to give you the last word. Say your last thing. Only because I'm my shoulders and your wife's coming in soon.
As I said before, I hope I've come across it. I'm not, yes, I sit under Conservative, and we've had the discussion where if we did away with all the politics, I like to think that when we talk, or certainly when we talk about youth, it's not about politics.
No, absolutely.
There are lots of frustrations for all of us. We are trying to deliver. We will deliver, but there will be challenges, and I think we can only improve for the youth of Chippenham and the surrounding community by working together. There's not one or it can't be. Even if it's antisocial behaviour, it's the police's fault, or it's the fire, or it's the council, or it's the health. We've got to come together to resolve that issue, and we are getting there. It's getting better, but I think we can still improve.
Could you do me a favour? Look at the document that we helped contribute to, Parallel Lives. It's about community cohesion. So we did that on a national level with national government. It's there, you can read it, and then you will see, oh my goodness, they were dealing with these problems how many years ago? 10 years? I don't remember how many years ago, right? It's this thick. It's done for ministers.
I think my last word will be, and it's quite relevant to, we talked about Zoom.
If it's I love you, then fair enough.
We've talked about Zoom, and I know there were some parish council meetings that went, God knows what. But I think what I was going to say is, and I think, again, we're both on the same sheet, what I don't want to do, and it really annoys me is, and you touched upon it, and it's historic of discussions. If you've got a problem and you've discussed it, either you can resolve it or you can. You need to move on. Sometimes we've discussed issues, whatever it may be, for years and years and years, and we can't deliver. We might as well be honest to everybody. We've talked about finances. If we can deliver something, let's get on and deliver it. If we can, let's walk away and look at another thing we can do.
I just want to make sure that the £75 million that we're going to waste on destroying our environment goes to the mental health and the well-being of our people.
I will not be drawn, but it's been a pleasure.
Welcome.